Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Bryan Connley on the show. Welcome to the Den.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to talk about all different types of topics here. But for the people in the audience who don't know who you are, give us a quick intro.
Sounds good. Yeah, I've been. I own a fishing company called Connley Fishing in West Palm Beach, and we started this in the garage back in 1989. It's over 30 years old now, and been making fishing rods and traveling the country selling fishing equipment for quite a while. And yeah, we outfit a lot of saltwater boats. That's our main business, and yeah, love what we do. It's a great little business.
Do you remember the first fish you ever caught?
Wow, thinking back, yeah, I would have to say it was freshwater way back in the early days. I grew up in Kentucky and Cincinnati area, and it was just nothing but little pond fishing, catching little bluegills. And I remember thinking back that far, doing fishing derbies, and it's something that stuck with me. I think I always loved fishing and never dreamed I would do it for a living. I just kind of fell into that after many years of growing up and fishing. But moved to South Florida and got into this fishing world here, and I love it.
Yeah, it's a good area for fishing for sure. When you're growing up and you're fishing in the pond, is that just what you do where you grew up? Is that a family thing? How does that start?
Yeah, a lot of family. Yeah, I know they always had little fishing derbies. I remember when I was a little kid starting with that, and then we moved from Kentucky to Indiana, and there's a lot of farm ponds, and we used to run around when there was nothing to do. We'd grab a fishing rod and go out and try to catch a couple bass, and I think that's where the love for it started. We just figured it out as kids, just grabbing anything we could grab, whether it was worms or crickets or whatnot. And it's just a good way to pass the time. So yeah, it turned into now it's a whole new world, saltwater fishing. So,
I mean, you said you never dreamed it would be your profession. When did you realize that, hey, this might be something that I can do?
It was funny when I was just out of high school. I dabbled in college for a little bit, and I just wasn't. I wanted to get to work. I think that was me. That's just my mentality, and I think everybody's wired a little different. But I wanted to get to work and start making money. But anyways, we started out of the garage just playing with fishing rods. We fished a little bit offshore, but we wanted to learn how to make rods. And I remember back in the beginning, we used to go to pawn shops and buy the neatest looking junk rods that they had there, and we'd strip them down and we'd refinish them. And that's kind of how it started, really small out of the garage. And we made a couple dollars here and there. I know when it first put us on the map, we did a boat show all the way out in Houston, Texas, and never been to Texas in my life. Didn't really know much about it, but I knew they had a big boat show. So we loaded up a van and drove all the way out to Texas. And I think we made about 30 grand that weekend. And we were like, oh my God, this is insane. We got to do more of these. So that's kind of what made it.
At this point, you're just blinging up, just for layman's terms, you're blinging up someone else's rod.
No, I mean, that was in the early days. We did that for a little while, but then we finally started our business out of the garage, and it lasted about 6 or 8 months out of there. We hadn't done any boat shows yet, but we finally got kicked out of the garage. My mom said, it's enough of this. If you're going to do this, go do it. So I think we got a warehouse in the worst part of town, because it was like $500 or $600 a month. And we lasted about a year there, and we started producing, buying rod parts and producing a couple rods, and it was really small. It was just, one or two of us. And after that, that's when we kind of heard about this big boat show in Texas. And I remember we rented a van from a local place in Lake Worth, and we drove all the way to Houston, and 20 hours away, didn't know what to expect. And the boat show was 10 days long. And I remember the first weekend we were sold out of anything that was like in their realm of fishing, like all the trout rods and all the inshore stuff that they like was gone. And we were like, well, we spent 10 days out there, and we were so excited to try it again. And I know as soon as I got back, I jumped on the internet and I found another big boat show in New York City. And that's another funny story I'd love to tell you. But I remember renting another van, and I loaded it up myself, and I had a map that was this big. We didn't have stuff on the phones like we did nowadays, but yeah. I remember driving all the way to New York petrified, because I've never been to the big city, and I'm like, God, if I can do this, I can do anything. But I pulled in there all by myself, set up the boat show. I had a little 10-foot booth, and we made a killing. It was like a 5-day. I say we. I made it. I sold a lot of rods, but I remember losing my voice talking about fishing rods for 5 straight days. But we had people lined up out the booth buying the rods, and I'm like, man, we got something kind of special here. They were going crazy for these rods, and nowadays we go back to the same show and we have a 40-foot booth and about 12 of us working. So it's come a long way over the years.
Yeah. Well, I'm from New Jersey. The drive up is easy. It's a straight shot, so nothing to worry if you can. And then if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, right? That's
it. That's
it. So my question before was, when you first started selling, and maybe even what it was Houston or New York, these were rods that you made completely, or rods that you took and refurbished?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, like in the first 6 months, I guess we were just doing a little bit of both. But I mean, we were just like so small. We were buying like good quality rods that were washed up, like in a pawn shop. I remember that was our initial early days, and we'd sand them down and we'd deconstruct them and we'd refinish them and we'd sell them for like $100, you know, like not a whole lot of money. And that quickly grew into, all right, well, you know, we've got a little following here. And that was right in West Palm Beach here. And all the locals were buying rods, but nobody else in the world really knew about us. And then we started buying rod parts immediately after and started building, you know, custom rods. And it was very, very generic back then, but that's how we started. You know, we were just making rods, and we might have had, I don't know, 30 or 40 or 50 rods in stock, which is basically nothing. But we started off really small. And then, you know, like I said, we did that for a year or so, just locally. And but the boat shows were what really put us on the map. After about a year and a half or 2 years into it, we finally did our first boat show, and that's when it went crazy. We were doing over 50 boat shows a year back then, and it grew into that. And we had like usually 3 crews on the road every weekend. We'd have, you know, a group out in New Orleans, one in Florida, and one up in New York City at the same weekend. And we were really pushing hard, but that was before the days of the internet. So now it's a lot less travel and a lot more, you know, get on a computer and just work smarter than harder.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things on that. It's still, there's value to being in person.
Yeah.
Get someone to look at it, even if they don't buy right then, to see it, to feel it, especially when you're talking about something like a fishing rod.
That's for sure.
When you're out doing these shows, did you mostly run out and then have to take orders for fulfilling later, or you basically had...
Yeah, and it's evolved a lot since, you know, going back to the beginning. But yeah, we used to go to boat shows, and a lot of times people didn't want to take it with them anyway, because we'd be up in New York City and in January when it's freezing cold outside and it's snowing and sleeting, and they were coming in to hang up their coats and buy boats and fishing equipment. So it was always kind of funny doing that. But yeah, they were never in a real hurry. So like sometimes they would just look at a rod and say, you know what, I love this. I need to get 6 or 8 of these. And they would outfit their whole boat right there on the spot. And we'd write up a nice order and take a deposit and just put them on the stack. And by the end of the show, we'd come home with a 12-inch stack of orders, and that keep us busy for the next 3 or 4 months. So yeah, and even today, like we cut our show schedule back because we used to do every show that we could find. But now we've cut it back to maybe doing about a dozen shows a year. And a lot of them are in Florida, but we still go to New York and Atlantic City. We've got a huge following up in that area. And it's now we just do the ones that are like home runs, you know, the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show and the Miami Boat Show and the Palm Beach shows are monster shows for us. So yeah, keeps it fun.
Fishing it's a great product to be in the rods, because I don't fish, but my friend Bryan, big fisherman down here, will probably join the show at some point here. I mean, anytime you see someone who's going out fishing, they have 8 to 10 rods on their boat, right? At least
pretty much minimum. Yeah.
So
if they're doing it right, yeah, they've got about 8 or 10 rods minimum. So
yeah, and that's not to say, you know, when you bring someone on your boat and they're seeing your rod or use it, then they could buy and they might have 8 to 10. So with that in mind, how much of your business is selling to people like that, and then how much of your business is do you do wholesale to the vendors that are then going to sell
That's
it?
a good question. It's funny. It's for our business model is kind of different than I think almost anybody else's, like as far as fishing equipment. And you know, I'm surprised more people don't do it this way, or some people do it, but they're just really small, like one-man shows, and they do well too. But we mainly just sell direct to the public, just retail. And that's all we can really keep up with the demand. It's so busy just doing that we stay so busy. And I remember going back 4 or 5 years, I had a big store, a big online store, and they wanted to buy like a couple hundred rods from us. So we made them. Long story short, they never picked them up. It was like a wholesale thing, and we're like, my guys are looking at them, and I'm like, man, I don't really want to wholesale these and sell them at half price. We could put these in the store and sell them in a day, because people love these rods. And I'm like, long story short, we put them in the showroom, and they were gone in a couple of days, and we're like, it just never made sense for us because we have such a hard time, keeping up with the demand to ever wholesale. And even as we grew, like we've got a few stores that carry the rods, but it's probably 99% just retail direct. And I think the customers love that. They love calling and talking to the guys that are making the rods and asking questions and dealing with us directly, which you can't really get that in a lot of places. Like if you just go into a store somewhere, you're a lot of times just dealing with a young salesman that it's people love that one-on-one with us where they're talking to us and they know us and they trust us because they're outfitting their beautiful yacht or their big, some of these center consoles nowadays are $1 million. So they want to deal directly with us.
Yeah. I think if you can go right to the customer, then you do. There's no reason.
Yeah.
Unless, you can find a way to make it work for you, but sure.
It's
really
worked a little bit. Like we had a store in Tampa a couple years back, and he was basically saying I have to get these rods in the store, and the guy had 3 really big stores over there, and so I said, listen, here's what we have in stock that we can turn over tomorrow morning for you, and I think he spent about $30,000 with us. He gave us a nice order, and the next day he picked him up and paid, and he was happy. Well, a month later he was sold out. And he's like, I need to give you another order. And I'm like, all right, here's what I have in stock. And he ordered like another $30,000. And I think we did that 3 times that year. And I finally had to pump the brakes. I'm like, you're killing me. I go, I love it, but you're killing me. I go, you're like wiping all of my inventory out that I sell online. But it's just kind of how it's been. It's like as big as we get, we keep growing and growing every year, a little bigger. But I don't know. I think that's our next step maybe is to maybe get them in stores all over the country. But our business model has always been just consumer direct, which works.
Do the 40-year-old virgin store that's only sells online. Do you remember that movie?
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly
it. And Jonah Hill comes in. I just want to buy this.
You're like, you can't. That's funny.
That would be something like at least because it's visual and you could hold it, but you don't have to worry about selling it and having the inventory. I mean, it sounds stupid when you watch it, but it does make sense that to be able to hold something and know what you're going to buy before you buy it online. There's people who don't care. They buy online. They don't.
Honestly, that blows me away too. Cause like I'm a hands-on guy too. My wife does all her shopping on Amazon and we get packages daily here and it's all clothing. And I like to feel the fabric and put it on and try it on and look in the mirror. But with fishing rods, it's the same thing. I would personally, like to hold the rod and bend it and feel it, but it blows me away with, the world that we're in now where everyone online shops. But every morning, that's kind of what I do every day. I wake up and print up all the internet orders and, there's usually about 30 orders every day. And we just walk out I got a warehouse here and we just fulfill them. And it still blows me away that many people can just click on and buy an outfit and spend thousands of dollars on fishing equipment without touching anything. So, but
what
that's
does it cost to ship one of those? Because it's like we tried to ship these posters and it's a weird size and then
it's a mess.
It just becomes like
it's a mess all the way from the shipping tubes. It's hard to even find 7 and 8 foot long hard cardboard tubes. That alone is the first step, and we'll spend $5 or $10,000 on a delivery of tubes every couple months, and we have to also have a place to put them because there's we go through them pretty quickly, but we've got to have a warehouse just to store all the tubes. So that's the first step. But then we're using UPS now, but it's usually about $50 just to ship a rod. But luckily most of our customers don't buy one; they'll buy like 4 or 5 rods. We can put it all in the same tube, so it works out.
Oh, that's good. I was going to ask, what level of fishing are your rods meant for? Do you have for every level?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think I try to do that. I mean, our rods are all handmade, so it's not maybe for the entry level child that's coming in, because I mean, most of them start off at least $150 to $200 range. So just for the rod, and then you got to buy the reel. But anything of decent quality is going to be in that price range. But even that, I have three different series that we make, and I always say it's good, better, best. And three different price points, and from our entry level stock series, and then we have a mid grade series with slightly better parts, and then we have our platinum series, and that's for basically the guy that's not worried about the cost. He just wants the very best that money can buy. So, and believe it or not, that's what sells the most. People want quality, which I know over the years we built rods that are very expensive. They've got titanium guides and carbon fiber rod blanks and stuff that was so expensive. Like there's some of them are close to $1,000 for a rod, and I never thought they would sell. I thought they were going to collect dust, and sure enough, they're sold out. And then we used to build
people who fish enough. They own a boat. They fish enough. I mean, it's like buying a nice set of golf clubs.
That's it. They really want the best that they can get, and that's what we specialize in. We try to get them the very best quality, all handmade stuff. And we've got a good group of guys. I've got one of my oldest employees. I think he's got to be pushing 80 years old now, and he's been with me for 30 years. And he still works like a 21-year-old. I always tease him, but I'm like, I don't know what I'll ever do when he's ready to retire. But he's a great guy. He's always the first one at the shop. But it's neat seeing all these guys in there. And it's like, I always say, it's like a chain link. Like every single link is so important because the rod touches like 10 different people's hands before it's ever finished in different stages. And people like that. They come to the shop and they see how the rods are made. And that instantly, when they see that, they're hooked for life. They're like, I got to bring my friends down here and show them, what you guys do.
Yeah, we were talking about Instagram, and the visual aspect of what you do is key. Fishing is fishing, rods are rods, but the different types and the way that you can show the way it's made, the handcraft and the detail that goes into it, that's what people want to see.
Yeah, the social media has been huge for us, and it's something that I didn't want to do from the beginning. We're so busy just making fishing rods, and a lot of my younger generation customers were coming into the shop, and they're like, "Oh, you got to get on Instagram." This is going back 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I'm like, I don't have time for that. I'm like, you kids aren't going to buy fishing rods. You're in high school. You don't have any money. and the one customer kept pushing me. I'll never forget it. And I'm like, all right, we finally decided to get on Instagram, and we didn't have any followers. We started off with 500 followers, 1,000 followers, and now I think we're closing in on 100,000 people on Instagram, which is insane. It's just watching it grow, but even just feeling the power of it. It's like, I look at some companies and I'm like, I got a guy that washes our cars, comes every couple of weeks. And I'm like, how are you not on Instagram? I'm like, he's like, yeah, everybody tells me I should be. I'm like, buddy, you got to be doing a video of that car. You're doing a nice Mercedes or something, do a video of it and post it every single day. Now, again, that's how you're going to get these people. And nowadays with us, I mean, it's caused me to cut back on some of the boat shows that were kind of the average shows that we didn't really need to be doing, because now I know I just jump on the Instagram and post a video and post a few pictures, and stuff sells that quickly. So I'm on it every single day. I pretty much make a living on the Instagram. So it's really, really important. Kind of changed our business.
Yeah. How good a fisherman are you now, and how does that compare to when you were, let's say, first starting the business?
Good question. I'll tell you, I remember when I first moved to Florida. I got out of high school back in 1989, and that's when we left the Kentucky, Cincinnati area to come down to Florida. And I remember going on boats and watching guys do it. I'm like, that's pretty easy. And then the first time I tried it myself, I had no clue what I was doing. I remember we would put the ballyhoo on and put it out there, and it's spinning and spinning. We didn't have anything rigged properly, and all the lines are all tangled. And it was a typical rookie fisherman learning how to fish, and we couldn't catch a fish to save our lives. And it's, I look back to those days and I'm like, God, I always felt like there's not a lot of ways for people to learn how to fish. So I'm a big advocate for that. Like it's not like you can go to fishing school or, but we sell a lot of equipment to these new guys that they have plenty of money and they got a beautiful boat and they buy the best equipment, but they really don't know how to catch fish. So I'm really good at linking like new customers up with some of my captains that I've met that are really nice guys. And I said, you got to put the time in with them and maybe go on a few trips and learn. But I remember being there. I had no clue what I was doing. And I've definitely come a long way, but I will say even today, when I go out on my own boat, I like to go out by myself a lot. It's fun and quiet and relaxing and gives you time to think. But a lot of times I'll hire a captain, just a friend of mine that's a professional. And then he can run the steering wheel and I can sit back there and enjoy myself and fish. So
yeah, there's a lot of different types of fishermen and people who like to fish. I am someone who only likes to fish if I can eat what I catch, right?
Yeah.
And there's some
It's
people
not,
who like the challenge of trying to get these fish that are hard to get and that you're going to throw back in. And then there's people who just want to go on a boat and sit back and listen to some music and have a drink. And if they catch,
yeah, it is. It's a mental thing for me. It's like I try to remind myself every time I see that boat going out the inlet and the sun coming up, just peeking up in the horizon there. And I'm like, listen, today's already been successful. I mean, how many times you can count on your hand or, in your lifetime that you can go out that inlet and go fishing, it's already a win. I say the fish are just a bonus for me because I just enjoy being on the boat. And I try to make my kids realize that. I'm like, this is a blessing to be able to do this, to be able to go on a big boat like this and go out the inlet and go hunting for fish. It's like the fish are just a bonus. We don't, need them for dinner or any, per se.
no. But I like to do like certain, like I really like catching a snapper or tuna,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
My wife, it's every trip. She's like, "Did you catch anything that we can eat?" Yeah, that's what she always wants me to bring. I'm really good at catching mahi, so I like to run offshore 10 or 12 miles and find weed lines, and that's my specialty. And we
You
just whip
smoke,
out.
you smoke it for dip, or do you eat it?
No, we usually are. I think it's been a family tradition for years, but we make fish tacos. Those
Yeah.
are really good. We've got the little shredded cabbage and a special sauce that we put on them, and my kids love it. My wife loves it, so I sit out there and fry it all up in little strips, and to me it's delicious. I love doing that.
We went. I don't know if my friend's listening. My friend Rob. I think we were in Turks and Caicos, and they were talking about what was for dinner, and this girl kept pronouncing it Maui Maui.
Oh, geez.
Maui, Maui. And I was like, oh man, we still, this has got to be a decade ago, and we still laugh every time we hear that word or just say it to each other. But there's so many, you don't think about how many different types of fish there are
Yeah.
unless you're out there and you're like, what is this? I kept saying, what is this? And they're like, every time I go out, there's some new fish that I never even heard of.
I think that's the cool part of it. It's like when you're fishing, like when I grew up, you knew what you're going to catch. There's one or two different fish, but down here, when that rod's bent, you have no idea what's gonna surface. It could be, especially, we do a lot of electric reels and we fish deep water stuff, and you're catching exotics that you can't even identify sometimes. But it's, and what I like to do, like one of my last trips out, we had one of my guys that works with us helping with the social media and photographing and all that. And we had him on the boat, and he hadn't done a lot of fishing, and we hooked into this beautiful sailfish. And, just watching his face light up. I love having people catch their first fish like that he's a freshwater fisherman too. And that's what he's used to doing. He's really good at that. But when he saw that sailfish jump, I thought his jaw was going to drop to the floor, So, we ended up catching that fish, and we got it up to boat side and took a nice picture with it and released it. But I can always remember those moments, like when you get somebody their first billfish. It's
You
really
jump off the boat. I think, isn't that the tradition? You catch your first sailfish, you jump off the boat.
Yeah, you're supposed to throw them off either at the dock or in the ocean. Or we teased him all day about that. We're like out in shark-infested waters. We're like, it's tradition. We got to throw you in right now. And luckily, we let him survive that. And he was trying to make up stories. Well, I hooked one time. Does that count? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
it doesn't count. You got to catch it.
That's right. I mean, you got to be. Yeah, it's a fight. Even some of these other like big tunas are. Man, it's a workout on your arms, and it's a fight, and you got to be. I mean, there's not a lot of excitement about it other than the fact that you might get it on, right? Because you're just sitting there and you let it out, and
They will kick your butt. Yeah, they'll make you realize, I don't care what kind of fish it is. I mean, they'll wear you out. Even that sailfish, we had it on. It probably took close to 30 minutes to get it up to the boat because they turn sideways in the water and they get all that pressure, and you can't budge them. And it's hard. I know I can think of one last year we got, and it was an epic fish. But I had my dad and his friend were in town from up in Cincinnati, and sure enough, we hooked this sailfish. And we were in the middle of a bonita school. We were all catching these big bonitas, which they're fun to catch. But, we had 4 rods bent at a time. And I finally hooked one. I just stuck it in the holder, and I kind of helped them get theirs in. And sure enough, they picked the rod up, and they're fighting it. They couldn't get this fish in. And I'm like, give me the rod. So I started fighting it. And I quickly realized this isn't a bonita, and we fought that fish for probably an hour and a half. And finally, everything in my body to inch it up to the surface. And ended up being a sailfish, but it was foul hooked in the middle of the back, which is, it fights 50 times harder. I thought it was a blue marlin. It was a big sailfish. And somehow, I mean, it almost kicked my butt, but I finally got him up to the surface and we got the money shot. We lifted the sail, took a nice picture with it, and let it go. But I'm like, wow, they will kick your butt real quick.
Yeah. Who gets the catch? So I go on a boat with my friend. He usually brings like me and my other friend who aren't fishermen, and either it'll be sitting on the boat and it gets caught, and then he says, "Hey, come get it," or he's holding and it gets, the fish is on the hook and he gives it to you to reel. I mean, what's the work of catching a fish? Is it getting it on the hook? Is it reeling it in? If there's it's not
usually it's doing it all yourself. That's when it's the most fulfilling for me. It's like when you actually put the bait on and you actually casted it out and you hooked it yourself and you wound it in yourself. That's when it's like, all right, check, I got it. A lot of times it's easy to go out with a captain that's really good at fishing, and they'll hook the fish and hand it off to you, and you get to wind it in, and that's fulfilling enough. And that's kind of what you have to do if you have people that really don't know how to fish, because otherwise you might only get a few chances a day. Like you might get 3 or 4 good bites, so you don't want to blow them all either. So yeah,
you want to let your friend catch, but you also don't want to lose a big fish.
Yeah, that's the hard part. And I do it a lot. Like I had some guys on the boat, they were from New Jersey and they hadn't done a lot of fishing. And sure enough, we're out there and instantly we hooked into this beautiful sailfish. And I remember hooking it really good and passing it over to him. And instantly he dropped the rod down. He's trying to get comfortable and all the slack was in the line. He's getting comfortable and then he picks it up. And he's like, oh, he's gone. He got off. And I'm like, we're not going to get another chance today at that. I promise you. It's really tricky, and you got to. I know even with, people I have on my boat, I'm always coaching them. I'm like, you got to keep the rod bent at all times because it keeps that pressure on the fish. And as soon as you give them a little slack, they'll shake the hook out and they're gone. So
the crazy thing is, even if you do everything right, it still has the chance to just bite the whole thing off. And
well, the big thing is now here in town in West Palm Beach area, especially, is the sharks. It's like you catch a nice 50-pound kingfish, like a nice trophy fish, and you can't get it 10 cranks in without the shark biting 3/4 of the fish off, and you wind in a piece of the head. It's a big debate up here right now. There's a lot of sharks right now.
Well, what do you do about that? Because you're not looking to kill sharks, right?
The thing is, it's like the debate is, I guess they recently started feeding all the sharks here. It's like the dive boats are going out and they're turning off their engines at 100 foot of water right off the beach, and they feed the sharks, and they all swim with the sharks. And believe it, I would never do it, but I guess apparently these guys do it every single day. So now the sharks are trained. When they hear the boat motors, they come looking for food, and it's a big debate now with divers and fishermen. They're going like this. But yeah, all the tournament guys that fish for the big tournaments on the weekends, they can't get a fish in the boat. It's there's just 50 sharks under the boat, looking to chew it in half.
My friend Bryan is, again, I mentioned him. He's the best fisherman I know, and he loves it. He goes to Bimini and Bahamas on
Awesome.
all the time on fishing trips, and he's telling me that the water is so warm that's becoming an issue. Is that a global warming thing? What is that?
I'm wondering the same thing, and it's like this summer especially. Like this is usually my time to fish. Usually we're real busy most of the year, but usually May through August, September, that's when I do most of my fishing, and it's been extremely hot out there to fish. The water temperature's hot. I never thought I would say it's too hot to fish, but it's like the last couple of trips we went out and we had to work hard. I remember we caught almost 30 mahi on our last trip about a week ago, and we worked so hard for that. I said, man, I never remember working this hard to catch a fish, but we were pouring sweat. The water's hot. The fish, a lot of smaller fish, but I'm not picky. We had enough for, we brought home a half dozen for dinner, so that was good enough for me.
Yeah. So Bryan Johnny says it's destroying it. You hit your limit, you'll cull 3 times as many fish to sharks.
Yeah, that's the case. That's what we're dealing with.
What do you recommend someone who wants to get into fishing do? What's the best way to do that, and what's the best way for someone who is into fishing to maybe take it to the next level?
Yeah, I know when we first started fishing, I remember back in the day, the first thing we did, we were going to buy a boat, and it's kind of rushed into it. And that's a very expensive thing, buying a fishing boat. And so I remember what we did, might not be for everybody, but we signed up for the boat club in town. And I think they had about 30 boats there. And we did that just to see how much we would use it, because it's expensive. And it was super affordable to do that. The boats aren't in the greatest shape, but it got us on the water. And that summer, I think we probably rented over 20 boats, and we're like, man, we love this. This is great. So we ended up buying a boat the next summer. So that's a good way a cost-effective way to do it versus going out and spending 150, 200 grand on a fishing boat and minimum, so.
It's interesting too, because when you rent something like a boat, you're going to use it more than maybe if you bought it, because you have it and it doesn't, I mean, it costs you money, right, to dock, but
Yeah.
It's there. I almost equate it to my pool. If I had to rent my pool, I'd be going in a lot more. I need to get in there more. Like, I maybe should start paying rent on the pool just to get myself.
Well, I'm telling you, that's what we did. I remember we would go. It was so convenient too, because you just literally go down to the marina, you step on the boat, it's all ready for you, it's gassed up. And I know when we came back, they'd fill it up with gas right there for you, and you pay for the gas, and you just walk away. You go get lunch. You have to clean it. You have to do anything. And I'm like, this is kind of nice, but the boats are average, so you eventually you're going to want your own boat if you're really into it. But it was a great year for us to just go out and try it out, and I think that made sense. But after you get some experience, like a lot of guys love to tournament fish. I like to just fish for fun. We sponsor a lot of local tournaments all the time, so they're always giving us free entries to go fish. But I personally just like to go fishing when I want to fish and just go out and enjoy it myself. But a lot of guys do that. There's so many like professional teams, you want to call them, that do all these tournaments, but they're always looking for people, to go, because you need to have somebody that loves to fish, that can afford to do the hobby, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's always a good idea to jump on a boat like that, because some of those teams will have 6 or 8 guys, and it's not easy for them to have put a team together. So that'd be a good way to learn.
How often do you fish?
So I'm a little different. Like, I know most people with their schedule, they fish on the weekends. I'm the opposite. Since I own my business, I have a lot of time I can take off. So I look at this. I look at the wind every single day. Like right now, it's like small craft advisory here. It's like 6-foot seas, and I'm what I call a fair weather fisherman. I go out when it's nice. I'm not going out to beat myself up anymore like I did when I was 20. But yeah, I usually go out. Like, I was just looking at the weather this morning, and it looks like maybe by Friday it's going to be beautiful. So more than likely I'll probably slide out Friday morning, and I keep my boat right inside the Palm Beach Inlet, so it's always ready to run. And but usually I fish during the week, Monday through Friday, if I can find a day. I try not to fish more than once a week, but it's a lot of work too. And you got to find a crew to go out with you. That's what I was talking about before. You got to find 2 or 3 guys usually to, if you're going to do it right. And that's what we did on our last trip. I think we had one captain go with me, and I had a couple other friends last minute that jumped on that all knew how to fish. And when you've got 4 sets of eyes on the water and you're searching for weed lines or birds or floating debris or anything that's going to hold bait fish, it's a lot better when you have 4 guys searching versus going out by yourself trying to search. But, and that's what happened last trip. We found birds, we found logs floating full of bait and full of dolphin. And that's, that always makes for a better day when you got a lot of eyeballs.
Well, Brent says he fishes solo during the week. I know he's a realtor, so his schedule's like that, checking the weather. And I'm always happy to go on and fish. So we got 3 there. In the middle of the week, we'll just go ahead
I'm always ready. My boat's always full of gas, and I don't mind. I like to charge out 10, 15 miles and find those dolphin. It's always fun.
All right, we'll go ahead and do it. The fish that you catch, do you have a favorite that you go for? Like, if you had to say, hey, it's tuna season, I definitely want to go as much as I can, or.
Yeah, I think what I see too, like a lot of myself personally, a lot of my friends, like you get good at catching a certain kind of fish. And like I said, I'm really good at finding the dolphin and catching the mahi-mahi. That's my specialty that I'm good at. I've got another couple captains that I fish with that love to fish for wahoo. And they do what's called planer fishing. They'll put out these planers, and it takes your bait down a little deeper, but it catches a lot of fish. They catch wahoo and they catch kingfish on the planers, but it's an art. It's really an art to it. You got like they've proven it, they've tested it, they're pros at it, and they know how to do it. I learn a lot when I go with them because every time they come on the boat, they're like, "You want to go planer fishing for the first 2 hours?" And I'm like, "Let's go." And I'll let them do their things, and I'll study how they do it because that's what they're really good at. And they always produce fish. I remember the first day I had my new boat out a couple years back, and my one captain came on the boat and he's like, "We're going to get a wahoo today. We're going to get a wahoo." And I'm just like, rolling my eyes. I'm like, it's really hard to catch wahoo. They're just very elusive. And son of a gun, an hour later, wahoo hit the deck and we're celebrating. And I'm like, they're just that good at it. So everybody's good at their own little thing. But I mean, around here we catch mahi, blackfin tuna, sailfish, and kingfish if you're fishing on the reef. Bottom fishing for a grouper and snapper is fun. But yeah, those are like the main species that we can kind of count on catching when we go out fishing.
You're in Palm Beach, right? That's where
yes. Yeah, we fish right out of the Palm Beach Inlet, and
is that the best, or it's just convenient?
It's my boat's 1 minute away from there, so yeah, that's the closest inlet for me. So that's where I fish. But yeah, I know the Jupiter Inlet is just north of us. I'd say never, but not very often fished out of there. But I usually just run right out the Palm Beach Inlet, and we usually run south, and because the current usually drags you north. So we'll run and fish kind of off of just south of Lake Worth usually, which that's kind of the landmark, but we're 10, 12 miles offshore. You can barely see shore. And then we drift north. So usually when we're ready to come in, it's a straight shot.
But usually the fishing is good enough there. You don't have to go elsewhere. That might be a better place for fishing, but now you've wasted the time to get there, the gas and all.
Yeah, it is true. It's like, I know like a lot of times, a lot of people will run up towards, they'll go out Palm Beach Inlet, but they'll run up towards Jupiter. And that's usually where there's a good kingfish congregation up there. But that's also where the most sharks are. It seems that's where all the dive boats go out, I was telling you. So that area is good. Like even when it's tournament time, these guys all go up there and they know what they're doing. They're going to get bites, but then they got to keep them away from the sharks. So it's always a gamble. Like a lot of times we'll head south and there's not as many sharks down there, but you don't catch as many fish. So it's, it's kind of a choice you make when you go out the inlet. But my choice is typically just to run offshore. I don't usually fish on the reef much for kingfish. I like to run offshore and find weed lines, which you can do that anywhere because that just drifts with the current. So
yeah. Brent uses Chaos and Crowder. Wants to know how are you guys different?
Honestly, people ask me that a lot, and I say there's a lot of companies that make quality rods, which some people might make them better than us. But I think what really truly sets us apart, and I hear this quite often, is we really strive for customer service. I think that's the biggest thing. It sounds so simple and generic, but a lot of people just don't get it. Like,
they don't.
They really don't, and it blows me away. And I'm like, it's a pretty simple recipe. It's like we don't have a lot of upset customers to deal with, so I always teach my guys. I'm like, if someone's upset, make them happy. I could tell you so many stories where just helping a guy if he has an issue with something and it changes them. If you don't do the right thing, they're never going to come to you ever again. But if just talk to them like a human and do the right thing, usually they'll buy more rods that same day.
It's just using common sense too. And the biggest issue that I find is that people aren't empowered by their employer or boss to just make a simple decision. Like the other day I got a job and the customer paid before I could send an invoice out. And on the order form, it said shipping's not included. They sent me a check without the shipping. And I said, all right, I'll discount the shipping. She's like, oh, I'll pay. I'm like, no, it doesn't, there's no point to that. It's a small amount. Like, why would you do that? But other people don't have the ability to do that. They're like, no, you got to do this. Or, customer service to me is the most important thing in sales because it's one of the only things that you can actually use to differentiate yourself. Because at the end of the day, a rod is a rod. You can be making the same rod. There's things you can do that's different, but a certain type of rod is a certain type of rod, and that's what you need to differentiate.
Yeah, no, it really is. It took me a while to figure that out. Because I've had that question asked to me a few times. Like, what makes you different than this guy? Because and I was like, hey, that guy makes a great rod. This guy makes a great rod, but I think that's what I hear it over and over again from our customers. I think that's why they keep coming back. They're like, they love us. They love talking to us and dealing with us and knowing that most people are rational. If they have an issue and I can just talk to them, we'll talk it out. I always can work it out with anybody that's rational, and usually that's the case. So I feel like that's definitely the answer. I think just taking care of your customers and treating them with respect. I think it sounds so simple, but it's a lost art.
You guys do specialty rods, bent butt for heist and slow pitch rods. I think I
Yeah, we do all that. And the slow pitch jigging is like something that's like the latest phenomenon. And I say latest, but it's been going on about 4 years now. And I remember when my brother runs the shop, he runs all the production, and he wanted to make these rods. And I said, man, these are the goofiest looking rods I've ever seen. They're skinny and they're thin and they're light and they bend like a noodle. And I'm like, I didn't even want to make it. I'm like, this is the weirdest type of fishing, but it's, I think it started in Japan and made its way over here. That's usually where everything seems to start. And so we made like 100 of these rods and they sold out completely. And I think we've made, oh my Lord, I have to say, got to be close to 1,000 of them so far. And they're all, it's the hottest thing. It's like, I fished a tournament a couple years back and we had a girl on the boat, her and her boyfriend, they're big YouTubers, and they came on the boat with us, and as soon as we got all the live baits set out, we had 10 rods, live baits, kites, everything flying, looking pretty. And as soon as we got it, normally we'd sit on our butts and just wait for the bite. Well, she grabbed the jig rod, dropped it down, and started shaking it. And I'm telling you, by the end of the day, she caught more fish on the jig than we caught on the live bait. And we ended up winning the tournament. We caught this huge blackfin tuna, and we caught everything on that jig. And I'm like, that's when I started being a believer of jig fishing, and it's a whole different world. But I'm not the greatest at it, but I try every time, and it works.
You guys have gotten quite a bit of attention from celebrities and athletes. How did that happen?
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's my, I don't even say other love or my true love. I don't know, but it's sports. I grew up playing sports, and then after high school and all that, coaching sports, and just always been a huge sports nut. I mean, I'm a little overboard on it. I love sports. Well,
yeah. You're a collector like I am. I know we traded some stories about collection. I showed you some of my stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I always collected cards when I was young and just kind of put them away. But now it's like a whole nother world. The card collecting world is like, it's unreal. So yeah, we go to all the card shows with my kids, but yeah, it's as far as the celebrities, like, I don't know, we just, as the company grew and the name brand grew, and we started getting different athletes from all different sports. And I remember, I think it was Davis Love, golfer. And I remember getting an email from him, and I'm like, I got an order from him and an email, and I'm like, Davis Love. I remember waking up seeing his name, and I'm like, of course, I answered it immediately. I'm like, oh my God, huge fan. Thank you for the order. Where'd you hear of this? He's a guy just Googled, best quality fishing rods or something, and I found you guys, and I thought he was referred to us, but now he just found us online. But yeah, there's so many cool stories, man, and I always get starstruck like I'm a little kid again. But lots of baseball players and football players, NBA, you name it.
You're a Cincinnati guy, so I know you. I see you with Johnny Bench a lot. That's got to be
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I grew up
as a Reds fan.
Unreal. Yeah, I mean, I grew up right across from Cincinnati in Kentucky, just 10 minutes away. We used to walk across the Ohio River to get to the games, and we used to go to the hotels where the players stayed and get all their autographs back in the, I'm going to say 80s, I guess. But Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, I've met all of them over the years. But I guess it's been a while now. It's been 4 or 5 years ago now, but I was lucky enough to meet somebody that knew Johnny Bench, and he introduced me to him. And for whatever reason, Johnny took a liking to me, and we just became best friends. And now I'm going on vacations with him, and we fish together all the time. And it's just been.
He likes fishing. Fishing's big for him.
Yeah, that's kind of how it started. When I got introduced to him, somebody told me that he liked to fish, and so we started talking about fishing. And he said, "Man, when I moved to Florida, I thought I'd be fishing every day." And he's like, "I haven't been on a boat in years." And I was like, "Well, we got to change that. Let's go fishing." And he's like, "Let's go." So I remember we went fishing in the Jupiter Inlet, and we caught probably 30 fish that day. We only fished for 2 hours. We caught so many snook, and we had a blast. So we only fished from like 10 to 12, and afterwards we went and got lunch, and I still remember just sitting there looking. I'm like, why am I on a boat with Johnny Bench? How's this even happening? It's like my childhood hero. I used to tell him so many stories about getting his autograph when I was a kid. But yeah, we became friends. And cool story, he called when I was first getting to know him. He shot me a text one day, and he said, "Lunch?" ? And I'm like, I didn't care what I was doing that day. We were going to go get lunch, so I was going to cancel everything. So I said, yeah, sure. I'll see you there at noon at the restaurant. Well, I ended up shooting Mike Schmidt a text, who was also a guy that I've been lucky enough to fish with for about 10 years. So he's a very close friend. And I hadn't talked to Mike in a couple of years. He'd been living in Rhode Island and back and forth to Jupiter. And I said, Mike, I go, I don't know if you're in town or not, but I go, I'm going to lunch with Johnny Bench at noon. If you're in town, I'd love to have you show up. And about an hour later, he texts back. He said, I'll see you there at noon. Jeez. So I ended up shooting Johnny a text. I said, hey, I'm going to bring my friend Mike. I said, make it a party of 3. And he's like, perfect. So no clue it was Mike Schmidt, So I remember walking into lunch and I sat down. And as soon as I sat down, Mike had sent me a text. He said, I'm about 2 minutes out. So as soon as Mike walks in the door, Johnny stood up and he said, Michael Jack Schmidt, what the hell are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, it's my buddy Mike, by the way. So, but we sat there and had a nice lunch.
Had they met before?
Yeah, they played together, and I knew, talking to Johnny briefly prior to that they were friendly. So I wanted to make sure of that. I wanted to bring enemy into the lunch.
Well, my wife is a Philly girl, big Phillies fan. Her family, and Brent is a Cincinnati Bengals fan, big Cincinnati. I got a funny Cincinnati story. We were going on a family trip to Cleveland to go to the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and to the amusement park in Cedar. And I get to the airport, and my sister's like, yeah, you'll come get us. I'm at the gate. I'm at the baggage claim 3. And I'm like, no, you're not. I'm at the baggage claim 3. She's like, no, I'm looking at the baggage. She flew into Cincinnati, into the Kentucky airport instead of Cleveland, because it's right there. Had to take like a Greyhound up at midnight. It's but people get confused about that a lot because it's so close to Kentucky.
Yeah, they call it that. It's in Kentucky, and they call it the Cincinnati airport. Yeah. It's kind of weird. Yeah,
she was supposed to fly into Cleveland anyway, so who knows? Who knows why? You talked about the cards and stuff. I'm into tickets, obviously, with Ticket Time Machine. Got my first ticket graded, and not because I want to sell it, just because it's awesome to be able to commemorate and talk about what's on there. That's
awesome.
To me, the ticket part is pretty cool. I know you got a great collection of stuff. If your house is on fire, you get everyone out, family, pets, all your fishing, anything for the business, all out. You can take one thing with you. What are you taking?
Wow, I got some really good cards. So I think, we just got a really nice, more of a current card, which I usually collect more vintage stuff, but we just got a Shohei Ohtani rookie autographed grade 10, and it's that would have to be something I would think really closely about.
That's worth a ton of money, right? The Ohtani cards are going gangbusters right now.
Unreal. Yeah, that was something. We just went to the National Card Show up in Chicago. And yeah, that was the card that we had our eyes on, and we luckily went home with it. So it's that might be the first one I grab. I've got a Tiger Woods grade 10 that's autographed from his.
We got a new product. It's a trading card ticket. Ohtani, when his doubleheader, he threw a complete game shutout in the first game, and in the second game he hits 2 home runs. And so we got this new product that we got. It's a trading card ticket.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I love Ohtani. I have the signables for Ohtani. It's like I'm trying to call my friend Lauren, hair company signables. So it's just a collectible, for Ohtani. It's a replica signature, but it's a cool display type of thing. I think someone was talking about how much is he worth? He's worth $100 million. He's probably going to get 75 to 80 when he re-signs. I think he's going to be the best player that ever played the game if he doesn't get hurt. And the investment that you made in that card, I mean, it's only going to keep going up as he starts breaking records, short of him doing something that's nefarious, which by all accounts isn't going to happen.
That's what my son convinced me. That's why we own that card, but I hope he's right. It's like buying a stock, but I thought that was a pretty safe gamble. That guy's unreal. So
yeah, I think so. So Ohtani, yeah, I mean, I don't collect the cards now because they become. I don't have the budget to buy expensive cards. Like back in the day, we used to collect. I'd get a set and a box every holiday or every gift and and I have all these old stuff. They're not worth much now. Some are worth some stuff, but the new stuff is like $100 just to get a pack of cards or a box of cards. Like,
It's a joke, and my son loves to drive me.
it's not a hobby anymore.
No, it's you have to be rich to go buy the stuff anymore. It's crazy. We walked around at that show in Chicago, and I mean, it's $10,000 cards, $20,000 cards for just a single card. If you
got teenagers walking around with $100,000 worth of cards
all day. It's
right?
very, very, very common. It's scary. And I went to the last not this year, but last year they had that show in Las Vegas. I mean, I'm sorry, Atlantic City. And my son wanted to go. He's begging me to go, and my wife's like, "Listen, I don't care if you go, but you just don't go there to buy anything. Why don't you go try to sell something?" And I was like, well, "I've never sold anything. I'm more of a hoarder. I like to buy these things and collect them." And so I finally went there, and I sold so many cards on the first day. I won't say the number, but it was a large amount. And I was like, wow, this is unreal.
It allows you to buy the newer stuff that you like or trade. I mean, that's one of the things
that's kind of where I'm at. Is I could kind of downsize some of my collection because I've got hundreds and hundreds of graded cards, and I'm trying to focus more on quality, like gems versus quantity.
I have one graded card. It's a Pete Alonso rookie, and I bought it at a local show here because I wanted a Alonso rookie, and it was like more expensive to grade the card than it was for me to buy it already graded, which was nuts.
Yeah,
the way they got that nowadays. So that's the only graded card I have, and this is the only graded ticket that I have. But it's become what I don't like is that it's become less of a hobby, and it's a money grab for all these big companies. You see with what Fanatics is doing now with Topps, and they got into some hot water with Panini and the NFL. So it's
all that,
but there's still, the crazy thing to me is they're still flooding the market with all these different types of cards. What's the difference if they, you call this a one of one, but there's 17 one of ones, 17 one of ones for Ohtani this year. Like,
it's got to be numbered. It's got to be autographed. It's like, and it's got to be a perfect grade 10, or don't even bother collecting it. That's just kind of. I'll turn the camera and I'll show you. Like, this is some of the. I'll try to turn it real slowly here.
Yeah.
If you can see here on some of these.
Yeah, right on the wall.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite collection here. Let me go pull one out for you.
So I think there's an opportunity. I think that there's a possibility that there's a trading card bust. Not for all of them. Like, there's stuff like Ohtani that'll be, but other stuff that people are overpaying for debuts and rookies, and like, these people haven't done it sustain itself if the players aren't performing.
These are a couple of my gems that if you recognize these guys.
It's hard to see. It looks like one is Mantle.
Now we've got this one here is it's a little glare, I guess, but Jackie Robinson.
Oh, there you go.
That's a really pretty card. And then this is the Willie Mays. These are two iconic classic cards that I think I might grab them if there's a fire too.
Yeah. When you collect the cards, do you care more about the grade or what it is? I saw a 5.5, which is, I'd rather have a great card with a 3.
Some of them you can't. Some of them they don't even have a grade 10 in. Like I've got a few of the Pete Rose rookie cards. I got 3 or 4 of them, and I think the best one I got is a grade 7, but it's a $5,000 or $6,000 card just at a grade 7. So
we used to collect. It was just for fun. It wasn't as much of how much it would be worth in a way. And so we didn't treat them that well, right? We played cards for the cards, and we have all this stuff. But we always say, like, oh, when I have kids, we're going to pass it down. What is your goal with these cards? Because you're still a collector. You're still in the hobby.
Honestly, that's the thing. It's like now that I'm older, I can afford to buy some of the cards that I always dreamed of when I was a kid. And now I think since the pandemic too, that the hobby just took a huge upswing, and everyone's buying cards, and it's gotten out of control. It's crazy. But anyways, to answer your question, my son, I've got 2 boys and I've got a daughter, but my oldest is 22 and he loves collecting, and that's why I do it. The 2 of us do it together, and I'm more. It just gives us such good memories, and he's so into it. And I mean, that's what when I was a kid, that's what I loved to do. I mean, we grew up, and I think that's where my business sense started, but I'm going to get off track for a second. But we used to go to Cincinnati barely with 10 or 20 bucks in our pocket, we'd go to the local card shop and we'd buy a baseball, and then we'd go down to the hotel, like say where the Astros were in town, and I would get Nolan Ryan to sign it, and we'd take it back to the card shop and we'd sell it back to him for $100, and we'd have enough money to go to the game that day. And that's what we did as kids. And sometimes the players would leave us tickets at will call, and we'd get the tickets. And I mean, I was in middle school. I was probably 12 or 13 years old, but we'd pick up the tickets, and sometimes we'd have 8 or 10 tickets, and it'd just be me and my buddy. We'd sell them all, keep the best 2. We'd have money to go to the game, and we'd go watch the game and take the bus home at the end of the night. And that's what I did as a kid. So, I have all those memories of meeting every player you can imagine back that was in the National League. So now doing that, collecting with my son, I love that. Like when we just went to that Chicago show, watching him, hunt down certain cards and us doing it together. I mean, it's all about making memories. And I told him, he sees, I think I bought a Tom Brady rookie card at the national show, and he knows it's going to him. So he knows he's going to collect. Every time he sees me buy something, it's going to be.
And the Ohtani too, maybe. What if you could buy and if you could have any card? What would it be?
It's on the list right now. I'm going to get it one day. It might be next year, but the 1952 Mickey Mantle rookie card, that's really the gem that everybody tries to
sell. It just sold with I thought like it sold. It's around $400,000, isn't it?
No, there was, I think there's one grade 10 in the world, which is untouchable, but that was many millions of dollars. It was like, I don't even know, 6 or 7 mil, whatever the number was, which I would never get that. But even like a basic grade 1 in that card, just the most ugliest card you can buy, they're about 30 or 40 grand.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get like a grade 4, grade 5, and I think some of them are around 150 grand. And so that would be the card, but that's as good as that's a lot of money for a piece of card.
You have the assets to trade. You don't even have to spend anything. You have stuff.
That's what I did for the Ohtani card. I think the Ohtani was about 20, and I traded 25 grand worth of cards, and I got $5,000 back in that.
To you, that's fine because it's only worth what you'd rather have this than this. It's
trading in
fantasy football. I'd rather have I'm overpaying, but I'd rather have these guys because I got this. Maybe I have a backup or.
Yeah, that's what I went up to buy that card this year, and the guy saw my collection. I brought a little case of cards, and I had a Hank Aaron rookie card that was autographed, and it was kind of an ugly card. It was a grade 3, and it was a little beat up, but he wanted it so bad, and I'm like, it had a value of about 10 grand, so I'm like, take it, let's trade. So it works out pretty good.
Yeah. What am I looking at behind you? You're a collector of is that whiskey? Is it scotch?
Yeah, this is my favorite room of the house. This is the little bar room here that I'm standing in, and this was a room that we did nothing with for about 3 years of living here, and it was like a little closet room, and we decided to make a bar out of it. So now it's like totally I turned it into like more of a sports room and sports bar. But I'll show you real quick. Like this is like all of the alcohol and whiskeys and different stuff here.
You collect any of that? Are you a connoisseur of any of it, or it's just this is what I have?
A little bit of both. Like there's certain bottles that
I see some vodka, Sky vodka, and some Casamigos tequila. Yeah. Up. I think we lost him. That's what I aim to have either in my man cave or outside. I'm working on it. Got to sell some of these Ohtani cards, and then we'll be there. $25 shipped for the Ohtani cards. For anyone who is interested in the Ohtani, a new product we're doing, a trading card / ticket combination, which I think is you see some tops doing these. You got the tops emails about the moments. Like they're putting everything as a moment. Like that just is, to me, that's saturating the market. Not everything needs to be commemorated.
Yeah,
like, the CFL guy threw 3 touchdowns. That happens every week.
Right. Yeah. They're really reaching and stretching a little bit. I agree.
But people will buy it. People will buy it because
they
want to have it, and it's cheap enough, and maybe it'll be worth something.
It took me a while to wrap my brain around that because everything's got to be numbered, and it's a different world of collecting. That's why the bulk of my collection's all vintage. Like I like collecting the Hall of Famers. You already know they're proven guys, and you buy these guys nowadays. You get some of their cards, and they're a bust. A month later they're a bust.
That's why I love that what we're doing with the ticket card is because it doesn't matter what this person does. If he threw a no-hitter, if he hit for the cycle, that's forever, regardless of how good a player he is. It's a rare feat, not just, hey, this person hit a couple home runs. We did this for the Messi as well
Uh,
for his debut, and now we're trying to do something for the League's Cup, but we'll see what happens.
well, we're big Reds fans, obviously, but that's Ellie De La Cruz. I don't know if you've been following him a little bit, but
He's killing
he's amazing, isn't he? I mean, the guy is fun to watch, and
it. Yeah.
he's breaking records every day, it seems like, and he's only been doing it for a couple months. So yeah, that was another.
Nice to get him in the playoffs, although I'm rooting for the Marlins to get there. So maybe there's a space for both of them and push the Cubs out.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Better for you, right? Push the Cubs out and let's get the Marlins in there. Really great information today for fishermen. You can check out Bryan's website and Instagram for any information, or if you have any questions about cards or liquor or anything like that, boats, he's happy to answer them, and hopefully we'll get out. I got to come see that room.
Come on up. Yeah, that'd be great.
And we'll go fishing and bring Brent with us. We're going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everybody gets. You can spend a day, 24 hours with anybody in the world, but they have to be alive and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose and what would you do?
God, I'd have to really think about that one. But I'll tell you, I was just up there in or where was it? In Cooperstown with Johnny Bench, and we got some serious VIP backstage stuff and got to meet so many cool people. But Ken Griffey and Derek Jeter were both there in the room, and they were the two that were untouchable. And I'm like, man, I'd love to get Griffey on the boat. I know he loves to fish, and I'd love to have him out there and just take him for a boat ride and get him out there on the water and just pick his brain. And he's about the same age as me, and we kind of grew up together in the same area. So he's one that pops in my mind, but I'm sure there's got some others.
I don't know. I think I did show you. He's on my Mount Rushmore that I have in my office that was custom made.
I remember that.
One of the best. Love Griffey. I think it's the first time he's been chosen, but that would be great.
He's a legend. Yeah, he's pretty awesome. He's one of those guys that I just haven't got quite a chance to really get to meet him yet, but I'm hoping.
I think you can, and we'll do what we can to make it happen. That's what we do on the Wolff Den.
Oh, there you go.
Well, great to chat with you. Looking forward to seeing that. I have some ideas around trading cards too. That will. There's a couple shows coming up that I want to do something for, so maybe we'll collaborate on that. But go ahead and check out ConnleyFishing.com. Connley Fishing at Connley Fishing with 2 N's on Instagram. Go get yourself some custom rods. And great to chat with you. We'll no Wolff Den. We're on vacation next week in the Outer Banks, but we'll be back the following week with some Wolff Den. So do something great, do something nice, enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.